Hi, Conrad.
Hi. It's good to see you again.
So good to see you again.
So I'm gonna start with a confessional. Actually, I'm gonna start with a confessional, and then we'll get into the meat of the topic because it's a good
Okay.
intro.
Should I be nervous?
No, you shouldn't. I should be nervous. This is like a kind of you shouldn't share this, but it's so powerful, and it's why when I met you, I was like, we need to talk more about this. When we were introduced at ABA Tech Show,
Yes.
and you said I'm a trademark attorney, my immediate reaction was like, well, you're not what a trademark attorney looks like. And then I saw your positioning with, I am what a trademark attorney looks like. And I was like, you
I
got me. And
got
part of
you.
me was like, come on, Conrad. Like, you're from Seattle, you're progressive. But I was so fascinated by my immediate stereotypical response to that and the fact that you have chosen to lean into that. And
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to have this conversation. And I've done a lot of work with non middle aged, balding, slightly overweight white males, right? Where like we've moved outside of that, where I've seen SEO data and pay per click data and the information that people aren't necessarily looking for, like the
Yeah.
me's of the world. And so there's that going on, but then the leaning into who you are, which I really, really love. So I want to get, that's what I want this conversation to be about. What's your story? How did you, I know your story, but for those of the people who are listening, how did you become a trademark attorney?
Well, first, Conrad, I have to say, first, thank you so much for having me on your amazing and established platform. And thank you for being courageous enough to, share the story. I think oftentimes we get scared of sharing real, authentic stories like the
That's
one that
true.
you just shared. And in fact, I think it's a great starting off point because I too thought that I wasn't what a trademark attorney looked like, right?
Okay.
So I say that to say that none of us are immune from the messages and the proliferation of the narrative that really drives how we self-identify.
Right.
So in terms of my story, I'm a first generation everything from the projects of Brooklyn, New York. And after years of being successful as an attorney, graduated summa cum laude from undergrad, went to UC Berkeley for law school, did a federal clerkship, constantly found myself in these very elite spaces. I wanted to quit.
Right.
I wanted to actually quit being an attorney because, to your
Why?
point, Conrad, I didn't see people who looked like me navigating these spaces. So I
Right.
didn't think that I actually belonged. And I remember because I am a first generation lawyer and college graduate, I didn't know what I didn't know about effectively navigating that space. And that, frankly, along with the abysmal lack of diversity, made me really want to quit. But because of mentors and friends, and frankly, some divine intervention, I like to say I'm a God girl, I decided not to quit. And I'll say a really quick story about what that divine intervention looked like,
Yeah.
because I'm very ambitious to some extent. And I will the Brooklyn in me will hustle my way into rooms. So I
Right.
actually hustled my way into a Facebook interview for a diversity management role because I was so intentional about not being a lawyer anymore.
Right.
And long story short, the woman who ended up interviewing me essentially told me that God told her that I needed to stay an attorney.
Really?
So, yes. So
Your
imagine calling,
interviewer told you that God said, don't like say be an attorney.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's more context behind it
Sure.
that I think without context it sounds like grossly inappropriate, but essentially she asked me a few times like why did I want this position? And I kept on saying their Facebook at the time had over 2 billion active users. I
Right.
wanted to be a part of having the diversity of the active users be reflected in the workforce or
Right.
something, I crafted something up. And she said to me at least 3 times, but you're an attorney, but you're an attorney. And before I do any interview with anyone, I typically research them. And I found out that she and I shared the same faith. We were both Christian.
Okay.
So at the third time she asked, I said, I've been praying a lot about this. And I think that this is what God wants me to do. And she then says, oh, you talk to God. Well, let me tell you what God is telling me to tell you. And I was like,
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, no, no. And that's when she told me to keep on going. And I remember just like really, really crying. Like we're talking Viola Davis in Fences, crying like snot. Ugh. And I remember just saying, but I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this looks like.
Right.
And she says, keep on going, keep on stepping in your authenticity, and eventually you'll find your way. So, needless to say, I didn't end up getting the job at Facebook.
Have
But
you stayed in touch with her?
I actually have a coffee chat with her in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
remember I did a terrible interview when I thought I was going to go to the graduate school of like international relations at Tufts. I'm blanking on the name of it, but
Yeah.
the interview was a disaster. Like I had no business being there, and it turned into like I don't want to say a counseling session, but like he kind of set me straight. And I
Sometimes it
have no idea
does.
who that man was, and I wish I could go back and find him and say thank you because it was an amazing experience. Not as impactful for you as yours, but
Yeah,
like it
no,
was
for sure.
really
I definitely made
it
sure
was
I
a
stayed.
great like slap,
Hmm.
and I wish I knew who this
Hmm.
guy was. But this is a long, long, long time ago before we had.
Yeah, you might be able to find them if you do enough research. You know how
Yeah.
you are with data and tech and stuff. You listen, give yourself a cool 20 minutes, you might find them. But essentially, I didn't get the position, but I
Okay.
did get a new perspective. And shortly after that, I actually updated my LinkedIn page.
Okay.
And I started incorporating parts that really reflected the authentic portions of me. So, up until that point, my LinkedIn page looked like anyone else's LinkedIn page.
Okay.
Job title, very bland description of or summary of what the job entailed. And that was pretty much it. But this time I added pictures. This time I talked about the diversity initiatives that I spearheaded while I was clerking for a federal judge in
Okay.
California. I talked about the talks and the presentations that I gave when in an effort to increase diversity in the legal profession. I talked about how I did a pro bono case on behalf of a woman who had social security issues, and we won that case on behalf of them. So I just
Right.
really brought my story because I knew that if I was going to stay in this career, it had to look different and it had to align with who I truly was.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would not at all be sustainable. Now, I will say that is not necessarily when I am what a trademark attorney started. I
Okay.
think it really started years down the line. So, when I decided to stay an attorney, I ended up interviewing at a lot of great law firms, and I ended up landing at Quinn Emanuel Ukert and Sullivan, which is the number one litigation firm in the country. So not too
Yep.
bad for a person who almost wanted to quit being a lawyer.
Okay.
So in that position, I served as an intellectual property attorney in the Silicon Valley. And it was in that position that I really started to see just the innovation of the Silicon Valley and just how amazing tech is and how the law is being used as a catalyst to unlock even more innovation because the inventors are having their intellectual property rights protected, right? Because
Got
when
it.
you know
Yeah.
something is going to be protected, you're more likely to innovate because you feel safer.
Okay.
But even in that, there was still an abysmal lack of diversity. I was the only Black attorney in Northern California, even though this was like at the time a 720 person law firm.
Right.
I was oftentimes the only person who looked like me in the spaces I navigated. And then on top of that, the intellectual property issues that we were talking about, while they were really interesting and intriguing, like we would do IP, trade secrets, patents,
Right.
copyrights, and trademarks on really dynamic issues with unicorn startups and huge monoliths
Right.
of tech companies. We really weren't working with the creatives and the people who look like me. And at the time, my billable rate was about $700 an hour. Now I
Right.
didn't see that money, but I
Sure.
was, but we were charging that much for
Right.
me to work on things. And it was at that point that I started thinking, okay, what is the why behind all of this?
Right.
And what prompted me to even start thinking that was I was put in charge of discovery for a huge IP case. I was very honored and handling the depositions and all that stuff, but I was also kind of exhausted. And around the same time, I don't know if you recall the video game Fortnite
Oh yeah.
and
I have kids,
how
so yes.
yeah, and how during around this was 2017, 2018, not too long ago. But
Okay.
around that time, Fortnite was under a lot of fire because there were some dance moves, including the Millie Wop and other dance moves that were originated in the African American community that was essentially replicated in the video
Yes.
game without the
I,
permission
I do recall this. Yeah.
of the original creators. And I remember just being
Yeah.
so angry about that. And the message that came up for me, particularly around that time, was that intellectual property was a civil right. Intellectual property should be just as accessible to the modern day entrepreneur or the diverse founder as actual civil right cases or other pro bono cases. So
Okay.
it was from that moment that I started Firm for the Culture, which is a virtual law firm designed to help social entrepreneurs trademark their brand, monetize their brand, and scale the impact connected to that brand. And as I continued in the conversation with my clients, with mentors and coaches, they would oftentimes be surprised when I would announce that I was a trademark attorney, much like the reaction that you had.
Right.
I would oftentimes go to different events and people would ask me what I do. And I say, I'm a trademark attorney. And they would be like, whoa, what? What is that? What is that?
Did some people at least try and cover it up?
No. I think the reactions were all across the spectrum. There were
Right.
some who were just like super, super excited. There were
Yes.
some who explicitly, and some of the people were people of color. There were some who have explicitly said, oh my gosh, I've never seen a Black trademark attorney ever. So like it was very explicit
Yeah.
as to like their excitement. I'm going to interpret it as that to go to sleep at night, but their excitement
Okay.
about me being a trademark attorney. So
Right.
I think it was that really motivated me to start this just hashtag, like I am what a trademark attorney looks like.
So it literally came from people saying you are not what a trademark attorney looks like.
Yeah, exactly. You are
Okay.
not what a trademark attorney looks like. And
Okay.
before that, I am what an attorney looks like, because I remember there was one day I was going to the post office, and mind you, I had a shirt that said I am a lawyer or something. Like, it
Yeah.
was very obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the person still asked me, "Oh, do you want to go to law school?" And I was like, "What? I'm barred in both New York and
Right.
California."
I'm going to law school to teach law school.
Exactly. So it's now something that, and let me be very frank, I am very aware of the implicit biases that exist, but
Sure.
it's now something that I really use as a learning or educational opportunity to
Right.
let people know, hey, this is not only what I look like, but my team and I also provide culturally relevant information that's still high quality and legally accurate to make sure that people who are not Spotify, or people who are not Facebook, or at least Meta now, or people who are not Google, still
Right.
understand the value of their diverse contributions to the culture.
So you have Firm for the Culture, right? Why was that what you gravitated towards? And certainly from the outside, your branding and your approach is very not. I will call it's antithetical to what kind of the legal tropes. There's no scales of justice. There's no
No scales
leather-bound
of
books, all that
justice,
stuff.
not a
But
man
so
scale.
why did you focus on culture, and how have you made that a real part of the organization?
So when I was in big law and I was ready to take the next step and I decided to start a law firm, I was connected, interestingly enough, to your co-presenter, Decorah Davis.
Okay.
And Decorah then introduced me to Kimberly Bennett, who was on the board of the ABA Tech Show.
Okay.
And Kimberly and if you know Kimberly, she's one of the most brilliant people that I know. She is amazingly caring and just wicked smart and a very systems oriented person. So we had a conversation, and she asked me, like, what do I want out of life and what do I want in terms of lifestyle? And I don't recall too much of what that original conversation was like, except for one part. When I talked to her about generally what I wanted to do, the law firm, She corrected me and said, "You're not a law firm. You're a business that happens to provide legal service." So she, from that moment, even before I launched, she turned the dynamic on its head. I was
Right.
not a law firm. I was a business that provided legal services. And with that shift, the world opened up as to who I could look to or should look to as my North Star or my zenith when it came to really structuring what would ultimately be Firm for the Culture. Now, at the
Okay.
time, I didn't have the name. I was still going back and forth with a couple of names. But obviously, as a trademark attorney, I wanted something that could actually get federally registered as a trademark.
Sure.
And to your point, Conrad, because this was so antithetical, this is not to say it was easy to trademark the brand, but it was less likely that a name like Firm for the Culture was taken. And it
Right.
reflected what we wanted in terms of making sure that people who otherwise would get turned away from big law and otherwise get turned away from the huge organizations, they
Right.
had a space here where they would get high quality and culturally relevant information.
Okay. Okay. You used a branding agency. I noticed the bottom of your site was done by a brand. It was done by a branding agency, not like a traditional website development agency. What was that process like? I love that you did that because I think, again, going back to beating up lawyers, most lawyers think branding and positioning is I'm a lawyer and here's the scales of justice and here's my suit. And you've really taken a very different approach to that. What was that process? Why did you go with a branding agency? Where did that come from? And B, what was the process like to go through a really good branding and positioning process?
Yeah. So believe it or not, and I'm sure this person is okay with me mentioning it because the price is on their website. My website cost $500 to make. It wasn't crazy expensive. And
In
the
fact,
reason why
that's actually crazy cheap, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
And the reason why I went with her is because it was like that cheap and I needed a quick turnaround. Her name is Jazz Deal. If you look at the bottom of my site, Baby Got Brands, I always
Yep.
recommend people to her. So she's amazing. And much of the conversation that I had with Jazz was very much informed by the conversation I initially had with Kim, which was to really turn the dynamic on its head and really say that I am a business that happens to
Right.
be providing legal services. So even Jazz, when we were talking, she started to show me pictures of law firms and say, "Is this something along the lines of what you want?" And I said, "Absolutely not." So she actually had me make a list of company websites that I loved, that I just loved,
Yep.
not company law firm websites,
Right.
not legal services sites, just companies that I loved. And I think I might have thrown in something like Patagonia, I might have thrown in Marie Forleo, just and none of them had anything to do with law firms. And then
Right.
she asked me about companies that I hated, like company websites that like just looked so drab. And almost all of them were law firm
Right.
websites. And I said, "This looks boring. I don't want, I don't want any picture of me with my arms crossed, like backed up against a wall. I don't want any of that.
Right.
I don't, I barely want anything with a suit on. Like, I just really want something that makes people feel like they can really, really come and talk to me and they can resonate with me." So
Right.
she got my copy. I incorporated into the copy what I said in the beginning, that
So did you write
intellectual
the
property.
copy yourself?
I did. I
Okay.
did. That intellectual
Okay.
property is a civil right. I talked about my story. In fact, if you go on the website, you'll see much of what I talk about in terms of apologies for that. Much of what, let me close my Slack. Much of what I talk about, which is the fact that I was incensed when I saw Fortnite taking dance moves from predominantly African American young teenagers without
Right.
compensating them, and
Right.
how that served as a catalyst to the launch of Firm for the Culture. So I really went with a person who's, and it sounds so amorphous, but whose vibe just really resonated with me, and a person who I trusted to run with a vision that I didn't even really know how to articulate, but cared so deeply about.
Right. How long did the process take? How long was the site? How long did it take to?
Oh my gosh, she's like the quickest turnaround. She probably
Okay.
did the process in less than 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
great.
So there have been updates since then. What you're seeing right now is a significant change or a lot of
Right.
significant changes. But for the most part, the bones of the website have stayed intact since I launched in 2019.
But I want to dig into this. The positioning, the reason I asked you about the copy, like that really came from you. And you like,
Absolutely.
okay. All right.
All of the
All right.
copy. I'm very, I wouldn't say neurotic, but I'm very, I want to make sure my brand voice is articulated
You
well.
could say
So,
pedantic. It's the same thing as neurotic. It just sounds good.
I mean, neither sound good. So, so, but I very much am, I care a lot about the message that's articulated to the communities that I serve.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
There, that's like you should be in marketing.
There you go.
It's you're a good copywriter.
I try.
Yeah. So you talk about the communities that you serve. And we work with a lot of female-owned law firms. And one of the conversations that I often have with the non-middle-aged white balding male lawyer is like people don't.
A lot of you guys are cool though. A lot of you guys.
No. Some of us are cool. A lot. By the way, a lot of us aren't. That's the others.
I mean, okay, cool. That's another conversation offline.
Well, yeah. That's another. We'll that's part two.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
But But how much of this, I talk about this branding and positioning all the time because I find it really fascinating. And I find that most lawyers, again, try and position themselves as lawyers and they forget like the who they are. And the who they are can be anybody. It can be your expertise. It can be why you're in this, why you're in divorce, why you're in immigration. There's a lot of reasons that you can be something other than the suit and the scales of justice and the leather-bound books. The comments I often get back are like, people are looking to hire people like me. And it's not just what we stereotypically view as, especially in trademark, as the people who look like Conrad. How much of your clientele looks like you or is not what you would expect? And or how much of is that not the case?
It's really not. It's so interesting, Conrad, how many people resonate with the message. And I think that goes to something that Seth Godin says in his book, This is Marketing. He just says, get bold with your message. You're going to attract some people and you are going to turn away some people. And I think that once I got bold, I myself was surprised at the people who ended up resonating with my business. A lot of amazing and dynamic folks from the LGBTQ plus community resonate with the business. And I think a lot of it comes from, just like I want to be treated as a person, as a Black woman, I want others to be treated as the people that as a humans they are. So even our branding goes down to the detail. Like, for instance, when we set up our client's portal, we will ask our clients, what is their honorific? Especially if they identify as non-binary. Do you want us to call you Miss, Mr., Mix, MX? Do you want us to just call you by your first name? What would you like us to call you? And throughout that entire experience, we are absolutely respectful, not because it's the politically correct thing to do, but because it's so ingrained in who we are as people and as advocates for diverse and social enterprises and entrepreneurs. That is just something that's part and parcel of our identity. But also, we've gotten tech bros. But it's interesting.
Did you say tech bros?
We do. I love it. I love the fact that because I'm a very curious person. So I love like finding out different things. Right now, I'm really big into NFTs. I already have an OpenSea account. I got my MetaMask wallet. Like, we're good. All I need to do is buy some Ether and get some NFTs and we are on and popping. But like, even that conversation I can have with some of the really techie people and they'll say, Ruky, you're like super cool. And I'm like, sure. And we'll get them their trademark and they recommend me to other people. So that's something that I can say we've been surprised by, but are very, very proud of. I would say, like, hopefully I get a lot of people who look like me. Yes, that is the case. But I also get far more people than I originally anticipated who do not look like me, who do not come from my background. And we've actually, I think because of the branding, we don't only get small businesses, we also get huge organizations and huge corporations who are tired of dealing with the billable hour. We provide 100% flat fee virtual services. You can sign a contract from the phone. If you need to book a call, you're not going to get another invoice, or you're not going to be charged if you want to book a call. If you have a question, we send you video walkthrough emails, so you don't have to hop on a call with us because we know that you're a busy person.
Right.
So I think that reputation has really allowed us to get really, really huge clients who trust our services just as much as a smaller businesses.
Well, you said be bold with your messaging. And I think what happens when you do that, I think my take, what I would like to believe in people
Yeah.
is that in being bold with that message, and frankly, in legal, it's actually fairly easy to be bold with your message because most of your messages to those people listening are really, really boring. There is not much of a message.
Yeah, we're a red splash on a beige canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's easy to be bold with the messaging. And my perspective is that in doing so, it's so easy to resonate with a much wider array than you may have originally thought. And it makes me happy to hear that anecdote from you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I thoroughly enjoy the conversations that I have with all of my clients. I mean, there are definitely some that I'm just like, no, you need to go. But but
Do you get rid of them?
we do. We
Okay.
do. We just
Yeah.
sent out a bunch of termination letters this past week, actually,
Yeah.
because just as important as it is to have my client feel educated, motivated, and inspired, that's our firm value. We also, to maintain the ethos and the culture of our firm, we don't allow people who threaten, who have the potential to dehumanize or mess up
Yeah.
the culture of our firm. And
Yeah.
this is not to say that we turn away people who have political leanings that are different from us. In fact, we encourage them to come to us because I'm a curious person. I love having those conversations. But if you are not paying big law rates, or if you understand very clearly that this is a big law firm, this is not a big law firm, and don't think that you're going to get a response in 10 minutes, or don't,
Right.
and it's flat fee. So it's just, we work hard we provide very high quality services. Our win rate is 94% at the USPTO. So we don't compromise the value of our services, but
Right.
we also want clients to understand and know that we are working with you. We're not working for you. We're not your employee.
Right.
You don't give us a W-2. And even if
The
you did, we still are not going to answer your email at 11:30 at night. That's craziness.
So this moves well outside of initial conversation, but I really strongly believe this. It's honestly having the luxury of walking away from clients that you don't want actually makes your business so much stronger because you end up with people who are really excited to be where you are. You end up with people who want to work for the clients and go the extra mile when that's necessary because they know when it gets abusive or horrible that you're going to walk. I think that is an
absolutely.
amazing, it seems like a cute, nice thing to be able to have and a luxury, but it actually makes your business much stronger. I believe this. I work with lawyers all the time. So like we need to be able to walk away from the assholes because they can suck 90% of the enthusiasm out for the remaining really great clients and of my employees, like 100%.
I could not agree more. And we actually have a running joke in the firm. And I talked to some of my lawyer friends for this as well. If it actually costs more for me in therapy, then you're not worth it. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. I pay a lot of out-of-pocket expenses.
Yeah.
So if it costs, and we are a flat fee law firm. So if
Yeah.
working with you means that I have to spend a lot more money in very expensive sessions to talk about you and not being a Black woman in the legal field and
Right.
not getting over my imposter syndrome or having a relationship and balancing it with being a full-time entrepreneur. If
Right.
I am talking about you,
Right.
oh, you gotta go. You
My
gotta
wife,
go.
true story. My wife this morning said to me, "You're muttering, you're talking to yourself. You have an unhappy client. You should walk away from them." She literally said that this morning because I was walking around the kitchen.
It's going to drive
like
you crazy.
Totally.
It's going to drive you crazy.
It's not worth it.
It's going to drive, because you will never be able to satisfy them.
No.
Like, you just won't. So, and do not fall into the sunken cost fallacy. Do not say, just because I've invested so much in it,
Yeah.
we might as well keep going.
No.
Cut your
Water
losses
under the bridge.
and cut your losses, get a template, terminate and leave.
Yes.
Give them back their money, do whatever you got to do, just leave. It's not worth it.
All right, let's end on optimism. What's the future? Like, how do you change law? What do you see as the next 5 years? How does this look different? Or are you, Ruky, still like a anomaly in this trademark world.
That hopefully not. And in fact, we were tapped by the National Council of Patent Practicum, who, in association with Meta, asked us to spearhead a program called the Trademark Pipeline Program, which is an initiative designed to increase diversity in intellectual property, specifically trademarks.
Right.
So the hope is, and in fact, the declaration is that I will not be an anomaly
Right.
5 years from now. But in any event, the competitive nature, I mean, we want to be the go-to law firm for social entrepreneurs who want to protect their IP. So right now, while because people have asked, do we do anything other than trademarks? And we
Right.
say right now, no, because while others may go wide, we want to go deep. We want to
Yep.
go really, really deep. So we are exploring this until the wheels fall off. And then we want to go into copyright. And then we want to go into patents. And we
Okay.
want to really make sure we have a deep, thorough understanding as it relates to social impact of intellectual property. And we want to make sure that we're also utilizing tech as a tool and as a tool in terms of access to justice. We are
Okay.
very, very intentional about that. It is very unlikely that we will ever become a brick and mortar. We intend on always being a virtual law firm.
So the interesting thing for me, I got into legal in 2006,
Mhm.
tech legal in 2006, and part of it was tech it's not the entire solution, but it is a vehicle to expand access to justice. And I had never really looked at it that way, but it's rolling out really damn slowly. This is 2006.
Oh,
We still have a
yes,
really
just
long way to go.
absolutely. And just like I don't use exclusive, just like my website isn't exclusively legal, my tech tools aren't exclusively legal.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I have to make sure I watch for the security,
Right.
phishing, and all that great stuff. But I think to your point, because we're essentially in a industry that's relatively anachronistic, we do have to get a little bit more innovative. We can whip up a Google spreadsheet like it's nobody's business. So yeah, but Conrad, this has been fun. This has been fun.
Thank you for joining me. Good conversation. And I'll see you next year at ABA Tech Show if you're going to
Yes,
be there.
I hope I will be.
Just
Tell them
put
that I
out a
need to be
call.
there.
I will do. I will whisper in Carolyn's ear. We can try and get you there. Do you
I
want to
love
talk?
it. I would love to talk.
Okay.
I would love to talk.
Let's do that as a
I
follow up.
thoroughly enjoyed the ABA Tech Show
It was great.
this year.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
it was really good. Okay. Thank you for your time. Great to talk to you, and you're inspiring. It's great. It makes me happy. It's great. It's
Ditto.
really nice to see this happening in our world.
Awesome. I am what a trademark attorney looks like.